Hello and welcome to a gameplay for seasons. On today's Hogwarts Legacy video, I want to talk to you about the 5 things I really hope that we get out of the update when we eventually get something on Hogwarts Legacy. Now, just quickly before we launch into those 5 things, I just want to talk about 2 fairly recent news updates we've got around Hogwarts Legacy. And the reason I want to do that is because it directly links into the 5 things that I am going to be wanting to hear about. So neither of these pieces of news are breaking news, but they are recent. The first one, as you can see on screen here, is Chandler Wood has now become the community manager working on Hogwarts Legacy, which is obviously great news that we have a bit of a face on someone who's going to be talking to the community. And actually, when you read through some of his replies to some other people's tweets, the really interesting thing that comes out of it is the fact that he's pointing out that they are listening to what the community is saying, which says to me, I very much expect that someone at Avalanche is probably going to be watching this video. And the second piece of news, which again is from a few days ago, and I've already put out on a community post, is the fact that we got an official update from Warner Brother Games Avalanche, who said that they are going to be giving us Hogwarts Legacy updates next year, which is obviously good that we now know we don't have to worry for the next few weeks, and also says to us that the game is still going ahead, as we all know, but I know certain people like to get reassured once every so often about that. So Chandler Wood sent a tweet on the back of that. Obviously, he'd only been in job for 2 weeks, and he's reiterated the fact that we're going to be hearing about it in 2022. I suppose one of the interesting things in the reply to what he said is they're going to talk about the game more when they are ready. So that to me says we may not get something right at the beginning of 2022 because it doesn't massively make it sound imminent, but we shall see. So I think the collection of those news together mean that it's quite important that we as a community tell Avalanche what we want from their updates, because they may listen and they may react to that. So these are the 5 things that I really want to know about. Feel free to put in the comments your 5 things that you want to hear about, because there is a reasonable chance that they may get read as well. I should probably mention, don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, to keep up to date with all things Hogwarts Legacy, news and all that good stuff. And let's get into these 5 things then. So the first thing that I really want to hear is the release date. And I think that would just be really good to set our expectation when we're going to get this. Are we going to get in 2022? Is that going to get pushed back? And when 2022? For all we know, it could be March, it could be December, or as I say, it could be 2023. So it's very hard to set your expectations when there's so much unknown. So almost the single most important piece of information I'd like to hear is that release date. The second thing that I'd like to hear is I'd like to know why it's been so long since we've had an update. And that's not some sort of rambling explanation that we need. I think something really simple, almost an acknowledgement that there's been a delay. You know, something like, it's taken a while because we're really trying to polish the game, or it's taken a while because we've had some sort of issue, or just something to acknowledge the fact that there's been this huge delay. And quite a lot of the community have been wondering what's going on. So to have a very brief 1-sentence sort of acknowledgement that there's been a delay, I think would be quite nice. And obviously they don't need to go into detail, but just roughly let us know why has it been delayed so much. And I think also that would give us an idea of how far along the game actually is. So the third thing that I'd like to know, which at the moment we've got no real idea about, is how long the game is actually going to be. Is it going to be one of these games that's got a 10-hour story, a 40-hour story? Is it going to in total be a 100-hour game, a 200-hour game, because there's all sorts of side quests and side missions and collectibles and things like that? Or is it going to be a little bit smaller because they're trying to make a large replayability depending what house or what type of character you go for? Again, it's just to sort of set your mindset, because we know this is going to be a AAA game, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a long game. And again, maybe it's around how far you throw yourself into classes, which affect how long the game will be. And the fourth thing that I would like to know is, what is the game going to look like? Now, obviously we've had the trailer, so we know what cutscenes are going to look like, and maybe there's some gameplay in there. But I'd really like to know how is it going to feel when you actually play, and what's the screen going to look like? I mean, if you think about other games, you don't have just a screen which has your character and not much around it. You have a map, you have maybe a spells in the corner, or some other piece of information around on the screen somewhere. I just generally like to know, what is the game going to look like? If we do get some gameplay, it would be quite nice to get some that actually has that piece of information around it, as if you were playing the game. The next thing I'd like to know about, I've mentioned this quite a few times on this channel before, and maybe this is something that personally I'm quite interested to know about, is whether we get Quidditch and to what extent we do. I've said before, we obviously get a Quidditch pitch, you can see that in the trailer, but whether you can actually play it, whether it's just going to be part of a storyline, or whether it's going to be a really involved almost a mini game within this game kind of thing. It's the sort of thing, if they put a lot of effort into it, I could imagine myself slightly getting lost in, which I think is generally a good thing. But it may be something they do really like touch on, or something where you can only potentially, you know, maybe do a mission as a seeker, or there's very limited playability. And as I say, it's not that I necessarily think I really want a huge amount of Quidditch in there, but I just want to sort of set my expectations. You know, maybe they're not going to put Quidditch in there, which is fine. I mean, I always think it's better to have something good in a game rather than something that's only been very light touch and therefore not good. So if that's what they want to do, that's fine. But again, I don't want to go into the game thinking, oh, what's Quidditch going to be like? And then it not quite being what I expected.